So this is a project overview video for the pumpkin that I carved for Halloween this year. When I started getting into electronics, I knew that I wanted to build an interactive cauldron for Halloween one year. So this year I decided that I was going to combine an interactive cauldron and the pumpkin to have a pumpkin cauldron. So the way that it works is there is an RFID reader disguised as a pumpkin vine and leaf on the back. And I have different stirring implements, all of which have RFID tags on the back. And when you stir over the cauldron, you get sound effects, light patterns going. There's a fan, which I'll get a close-up shot a little bit later, but there's a fan that blows up mist from a mister tub in the middle. And because I'm using RFID to do the detection, each of the stirring implements has its own sound effects, its own lights, and triggers the fan blowing. So it's still daytime out, so it's a little bit bright, but I wanted to turn off the lights so that you can get a little bit better idea of how the pumpkin works. So I'll stir over the pumpkin leaf. You can see the fan kick up the mist. So those are the three main patterns that I programmed into the pumpkin. I pulled the pumpkin down on the ground so we could get a better look on the inside. We have the 5-volt fan on the inside, along with a LED strip, and the scaffolding for holding the tray that I've got pulled out for the moment. And if we wave one of the stirring implements over the RFID reader, we get a light pattern on the LEDs, the fan kicks on, and the sound effects play. So, and because each of the stirring implements have an RFID tag on it with a unique identifier, the sound effects, or like the sound patterns and lights are all different. So, and one of the cool things about the way that the code is written is the the fan and the light effects will run for the duration of the individual sound effects. So if one of the sound effects was longer or shorter than the other ones, there's not any kind of like a delay or interval that that the fan and the lights are running for. It's actually looking for the end of the sound effect signal from the Music Maker wing, and that's when it cuts everything off. So all of the patterns and fan blowing are timed with whatever audio file happens to play. And it made switching out the different audio files pretty easy when I was trying to select which ones I wanted. So I'm gonna drop the tray in, and it's just a plastic container that I cut a notch in the back for, so that the airflow is a little bit easier in the back. And then I'll place the ultrasonic mist maker in here, and hopefully you can see some of the mist being kicked up. And now, and it's actually kind of hard to see with the light on. You can kind of see it around the edge. So there's enough of a lip that the fan that's angled up at the back will actually blow up, kind of follow the curve of the pumpkin, and then blow forward to where the notch meets up. So, which is a pretty cool effect. So the design of the pumpkin went through a bunch of different iterations. Originally, I was going to have a 3D printed scaffold that dropped down the middle of the pumpkin that held the electronics, the speaker, the battery, and then had a tray for the dry ice, which I was originally going to use to create the mist. After iterating over it, I decided that having a stack of electronics with dry ice or even a mister on the top was a bad idea. So I was going to move all the electronics and mount them just to the back of the pumpkin. Like I built a mount and I was going to shoot it through with wood screws. And then my wife suggested making a platform for it. So all of the electronics are hidden underneath this platform that the pumpkin is sitting on. And they're also protected because even if the mist drops through, they're still essentially an umbrella for the electronics. So all the cabling and items are underneath, and then the RFID reader's cables disguised as a little pumpkin vine with some nice cricket cut paper pumpkin leaves on the back. So if we take a look under the stand, you could see all the internals for the pumpkin. I've got an Adafruit M0 Express as the microcontroller for the project, Music Maker Wing that's running all the sound effects that are used, and then a custom circuit board where I wired in the RFID reader, the LED strip, and then the fan. I've got a little breakout board with a capacitor for the fan because I was experiencing some brownouts whenever the fan spun from time to time. So throwing an electrolyte capacitor in there helped kind of like smooth over when the fan was drawing too much current. I tried to reuse as many of the 3D printed parts as I could from previous iterations of the scaffolding. So this white part is actually the circuit mount from one of the previous iterations that worked well still. So I just designed the platform to accept it as a mounting point. The mist for the pumpkin is being generated by this little ultrasonic mist maker. I saw the Ruiz brothers from Adafruit using one of these in one of their projects, and after having some disastrous results with the dry ice, this seemed like a much easier, a little bit tamer way of generating the mist. So you just drop this into a container of water, and once you plug it in, there's a little ultrasonic like speaker essentially that vibrates the water to the point that it becomes mist. And the advantage of using this mist over dry ice is that it's really easy to blow. It actually takes very little air to move it. So the 5-volt fan that I have on the inside of the pumpkin was easily able to move this mist around. So that was the pumpkin build. I had to switch back to the test pumpkin for the end of this video because the actual pumpkin started rotting out. This is just a test pumpkin that I got from either Michael's or Joanne's to kind of build everything out. But yeah, it was a really fun build. I enjoyed planning this out, building it, and iterating over it until I actually got it to work. So I try to think about takeaways at the end of any project that I do, and the takeaway that I have from this project is that the pumpkin has bad UI, and I mean that. I mean that because whenever I watched people interact with the pumpkin, they would walk up to it and they would look at it. They wouldn't immediately grab the implements and try it out. So I wrote a little note that said, wave the implements over the pumpkin leaf to interact with it. And I still had people that either didn't read the note or that waved it over the center of the pumpkin instead of the leaf so the RFID trigger didn't go off, or waved the implements upside down. And with the ladle in particular, if you wave it upside down, there's enough space between the tag and the RFID reader that it just didn't read. So it didn't trigger every single time, and that wasn't really user mistake. That was just bad user interface. So whenever I was reflecting on it, I thought about, well, typically people don't go up and touch pumpkins. Like the expectation isn't that you're going to go up and interact with a pumpkin. So this one is kind of out of the ordinary, and it's not obvious how you would interact with it. I mean, once you know what it is, it becomes obvious. Like, oh yeah. I wave and it does the thing. But until you know what it's supposed to do, and even how close it's supposed to be, it's not obvious for the average person. So I think that while I enjoy it, this is really a pumpkin that is meant for someone standing behind it and operating it, rather than people walking up and operating it themselves. So with the realization that this UI isn't the greatest in mind, I was thinking about the pumpkins that I'm going to do next year and in future years, and about what is good UI for the pumpkin. And I think it all centers around the idea of the pumpkin should invite and inform the user to let them know that yes, you can touch the pumpkin. So whether that be some kind of a visual clue of like pointing somewhere, or some kind of way to like maybe even iconography of that is typically seen on things that are touchable, or even like audio cues. So if I have a pumpkin that has a tray of candy on the inside, that is the trigger for all the other actions. Even like audio clues, like sound effects that say grab some candy, or something like that, could probably be a better UI to invite people in. Or if I am going to use some kind of a visual sign, make it part of the pumpkin. So instead of handwriting a sign in Sharpie and sticking it next to the pumpkin, maybe like making part of the stand, or carving part of the pumpkin to say like take some, or something like that. So, but some way of indicating this is an atypical pumpkin, and you are supposed to touch it. You can interact with it. So yeah, that's it. That is my pumpkin cauldron. I'm really happy that I got a chance to build this out, because it's one of the early ideas I wrote down in my good idea notebook, that I wrote down thinking I have no idea how to accomplish this, but at some point I will. So it was nice to come back and actually do it. And actually, now that I'm filming it at night, let me turn off the lights. And that's it.